So in today's video, I wanted to talk about the setups themselves, what I want to upgrade with these machines, and also some issues that I would like to fix. And then I started to talk about that, and I realized that even the biggest problems that I have with these machines, it's nothing compared to modern hardware and really just, the modern computer market. First off, we have RAM and we also have systems that still run on mechanical hard drives because guess what? The software actually works well with it. Basically, with modern computers, what do you have? Now you have advancements with AI slop and, of course, a built-in NPU or a neural processing unit because, yeah, you definitely need that so you can make AI slop directly on your desktop. So what's the plan for today's video? Honestly, I don't know. I figured it would just be a nice commentary on the fact that it's actually a blessing in disguise to have some ancient hardware as well as modern hardware because, well, at least on the software side of things, if it's modern, you can still use it with systems like this. Now, it's not to say that I exclusively only use, 2-decade-plus-year-old hardware, but I will say that the more I use it, the more I'm glad I have these systems because they just work. And now we have a usable desktop, we still have modern Firefox available, and of course music is provided here with our mini disc deck, which of course doesn't have advertising. Yeah, that's another thing. Advertisements, app integration, and of course AI everything. So I guess this is just kind of like a commentary on the fact that modern hardware and software has become basically a shell of its former self. Systems like this Mac Pro from 2006, the G5 from 2004, and of course our Power Mac from the year 2000 still work even after all this time. Yeah, they are considered obsolete. Yeah, they're old, but you know what? This system has RAM, and the Mac Pro especially has been fully upgraded to not 8, not 16, but 32 gigabytes. And another thing about these systems here is that you can actually open them up and upgrade them. Now obviously on the PC side here you can still do that, but with many Mac systems what you see is what you get. But here the RAM is easily accessible, and here we have 16 gigabytes of RAM just casually sitting here. Now it's not DDR5, which does help out in terms of getting it in the first place, but honestly I don't need DDR5. I don't even need DDR4 because the newest systems I have here use DDR3. And who would have guessed that they still work because they made the software actually usable. Now specifically the Hackintosh here, this is on a Core 2 Duo. We only have 4 gigabytes of RAM, and yet these system specifications are more than enough to use as a server. Now I'm using this primarily as my Hackintosh file server, so as you can see we have macOS file server right there. Now I wanted to use this for net booting as well, but I just haven't gotten into that. But basically, because I have a whole lot of hard drives, I was able to upgrade my system to use as a server. Another really nice thing here is that this is so old we don't even have Siri. All we have is Spotlight because Spotlight is actually useful. And another thing about macOS Lion is that we have Launchpad. Yeah, so this thing is here, it's awesome, and it actually works instead of whatever modern macOS has nowadays. I might be stuck in the past 10 to 15 years, but honestly, just look at the hardware side of things. Where else are you going to find a modern system like the Power Mac here? The other nice part about this is that it's not going to ask you for your Microsoft account. It's not going to ask you to connect to the internet because, well, in some cases, the software is so old it can't even communicate with the internet anymore. Now, I'm going to say technically, yes, it can, as long as you can make it work. It can still connect to the internet, obviously, but something like built-in Internet Explorer on Windows XP does have its issues, but as long as you connect to old websites, something that is still optimized for it, it does still work. But another thing actually, Windows XP itself here, which is on this Dell Optiplex, it still has modern web browsing capabilities because of new web browsers like Supermium. Now, do I use it as much as the the Hackintosh? Not necessarily, because I just prefer using Firefox on macOS. Now the only system here that is newer is my Dell Optiplex 3020. This has Windows 10. I guess I should mention that this HP also has Windows 10, this laptop right here, and yet I use these systems probably the least. I just started to use this Optiplex a bit more because I'm using it as a file server for the Windows XP machine. But before you say, oh, I only use ancient stuff, I have the modern hardware right here. I can use it whenever I want. I just end up using these more because they just work. Now obviously I know that for some it just doesn't make sense to use older hardware like this, whether it be dependent on your job or really just anything. There's a lot of factors that go into using systems like this, but because I don't really have a daily driver, like not just one daily driver, like all of these can be my daily driver because I use a variety of different desktops all the time. So I don't have just one daily driver. If I want to use Windows, I have multiple daily drivers right here. If I want to use macOS, I have these right here. Now the Power Mac itself still needs to be worked on. This is actually something I wanted to talk about. Now if you want to see more about this G4, I've made a dedicated video just on this alone. It's a fantastic system. I can't wait to use it more. But until I get the hard drive sorted out, it's still going to take a little while. I can always use the G5 as an external hard drive onto the G4. But, you know, G5 is right there. It's already hooked up to the awesome acrylic cinema display. This also needs some work as well because I want to reinstall macOS, make the hard drive a bit cleaner. So that's going to be another topic in the future. Where else are you going to find hardware like this nowadays? It's all about making it as thin as possible, or I guess that's what it was like 10 years ago. Now some systems aren't necessarily like that anymore, but with this, I mean, no AI slop, because these were made decades before the introduction of AI anything. So how has software and also the hardware side of things gone from this to what we see nowadays? I mean, you can't even buy a GPU or RAM anymore because AI slop. Around here, we like to say that these systems are Steve approved. Yes, Hackintosh is Steve approved only because it's using macOS Lion. Now what I mean by that is that they're just older systems. When skeuomorphic macOS and for that matter of fact Windows Aero and Windows XP was still current. And I think the biggest factor is that these systems were optimized. There are no SSDs within the systems here, at least the Mac systems. I do have SSDs within the Windows machines because it's otherwise impossible to run Windows 10. So it comes down to optimization. Yeah, we're just now seeing that, oh wait, maybe we should have been optimizing our software in the first place because no one can get RAM anymore. If you have it, then you have it. But if you wanted to upgrade and, well, you missed out on when it was still easily accessible, then good luck. Because these systems use DDR3 and older, that makes it technically e-waste because DDR2 is so slow, or SD-RAM within the Power Mac is ancient, and technically speaking, it is. But that just means it's more easily accessible because, well, it's e-waste. This thing right here is like peak e-waste, but now it's not because CRTs are becoming more popular again. One of the big things about these systems is the fact that they take up a lot of space. But I'm never getting rid of these because CRTs, even though they were seen as ancient display technology, which is, you know, you gotta get rid of this, only use LCDs. Well, if you threw it out, a lot of people are regretting that now because you can't get these anymore brand new. If you have it, you have it. Otherwise, again, just like the RAM, good luck. Now, the reason why I haven't been using my Mac Pro as much as I would like to use it is because of the GPU, which is another topic that is absolutely hilarious to talk about because good luck getting a GPU nowadays because, again, AI slop right on your computer is necessary with a GPU. Now, you can still get a GPU, but it's probably not going to be a brand new one at this point because, well, again, just like RAM, good luck finding one. Now, I want to upgrade the GPU within the system, and of course it's going to be an era-appropriate one, probably like a Radeon, whatever, like the higher-end version of this that obviously still supports macOS Lion. And the main reason I want to do that in the first place is because this GPU, the X1900 XT, is such a weird card, honestly. with the fan design and everything. It's been giving me some issues with this Mac Pro. I don't know if it's specifically the GPU. I guess I could try it out within this. I think it should work within the G5, but I just haven't dealt with that yet. Regardless though, it still is nice to have at least a slightly newer card, because then we can display skeuomorphic macOS in even higher resolutions. Not like these displays can handle it in the first place, because again, these are also technically e-waste because it's a 4x3 LCD and a 1400 by 900 widescreen Dell panel. So it's not Retina, but neither is this, which is far older, and yet it still has a fantastic picture. Now this might just be rambling of being stuck in the past. Honestly, I'd prefer it with this, because am I ever going to use an NPU within a computer? I'm not saying that AI is completely like, why even bother? I can see that there are certain applications if you use it properly, but I just know that I'm never going to use a GPU or an NPU to generate some AI artwork when I can get more aesthetic photos and videos using old hardware such as the iPhone 4, which is also the camera for today's video. Yeah, if it's only in 720p, that's the reason why, because we're using 2010 technology to record video about even older hardware. Technically, this Optiplex is also from 2010, but apart from that, everything else here is older, excluding the Windows 10 machines. Oh yeah, have I mentioned how awesome mini disc is? Because no advertisements, it just works. I'm glad that I'm able to use these systems on a regular basis, because the more videos I film for you guys, I mean, as a YouTuber, I'm supposed to work on these systems in the first place, because what we do is we talk about old technology, we use said old technology, and it's always a great day to revisit the past, especially when you have it all set up here. No KVM switches, even though I lack keyboards and mice. Yeah, we have dedicated setups, and it's not that I lack keyboards and mice, but it's rather that I have so many setups here that I'm always needing more, and I do have more, I just need to clean them up. Maybe once upon a time during the Steve era there was innovation being made, and then it just kind of fell off. Now, in some cases, some things might be literal e-waste, such as, you know, a hard drive that is completely dead, or same goes for an SSD. Basically, if the hardware itself is still, like, it'll power up, you can still use it, it doesn't mean that it's exclusively e-waste. Now, it's always going to be the most popular thing to get the newest, to get the latest system, obviously be completely up to date, but I think I'm just going to stay here with my awesome 2010 and older era hardware, because I just know that it's not going to ask me to sign into something, be reliant on internet services that will eventually go away someday, and of course, best of all, no AI slop. Just because you might have the newest system available, if you have something old and of course obsolete, why not try to find a new use for it? One great example is a file server. Just like with the Hackintosh, I use it all the time because it's easy to access on these older systems, and of course, it still makes for a nice web browsing machine, because with the power of a Core 2 Duo, yes, a Core 2 Duo can still easily access the modern web. In fact, it can even play YouTube without any issues. PowerPC itself might be a bit more difficult to get online, but even with just the software, like the decades of software available for these systems, which most of which are considered abandonware at this point, you can still use it even today. So what else can we talk about here? Obviously cassette decks are cool. Now I don't use it as much as mini disc, but it's still awesome to have. Even though this is considered like just a all-in-one system, it still works really well. LCD monitors, always going to be useful. Like the design of the Power Mac itself, it's perfection, really. Like, it's AI free. You can run macOS 9, macOS 10. In fact, we can even actually power up the G5 here with the power of ADC, another obsolete standard. The era of peak computing might be gone, but the hardware is still around, and as long as it still works, I'm gonna still use it. This obviously doesn't have a boot device, so it wants an installer CD, but that's another thing. Optical media. I use optical media all the time. you want to live in 2004, you gotta listen to the right music. And start Bee Gees. Yeah, you can still use optical media with a modern PC, but you're just not going to have this awesome interface with Windows 11. Now, just because I use all of this awesome hardware, it doesn't mean that mentally I'm stuck in the past. I still keep up to date with the latest in modern technology, and I still use modern macOS on a regular basis when it comes to editing videos for you guys. Now, Big Sur itself might not be the latest anymore, but it's still way newer compared to whatever we have here. And if I had a modern system, I'm sure I could find a use for it. Nothing is going to beat the Steve era of computers here, because Steve approved hardware is Steve approved hardware. So if you enjoyed today's video talking about ancient hardware, ancient software, and the fact that these systems are free of AI slop, then consider leaving this video a thumbs up. And if you want to see even more awesome content recorded on ancient iPhones, not just because we can, but it's also because it's Steve approved hardware, then consider subscribing. Now, this video was a bit different. It's kind of like a commentary, not necessarily reaction, but closer to that style, at least for my channel. And if you want to see more videos like this, then leave a comment down below. If there's a topic you want to see discussed with these ancient systems in frame, then let me know, because it was pretty fun to make this. I know it's not the usual tech style of content, but it's still awesome to record, to make, and of course, it's always a great day when you can use an iPhone 4 as your camera. We have peaked, and I don't know when this era is going to return, because Steve approved hardware, it's been a while since these were last Steve approved. So I'm going to hold on to these. Now, I don't expect this video to be perfect, but I don't plan on stopping, because the only way forward is in the past. Now that the Optiplex has gone to the screensaver here, I think it's a good time to wrap up today's video. And if you want to see more, then don't worry, because we're only just getting started. 90s Sony was just a different time period.